Good evening. Welcome back to Sports Talk ATL. I am Chase Earl, joined by Alex. Lord, it wasn't pretty, but it was a much-needed win, and it reminds you of everything that's wrong with this Braves team. You're 1 for 11 with runners in scoring position. I told you, hey, show some damn pride. You got Paul Blackburn on the mound for about a couple innings. It looked like it. And then you get the bases loaded, and you only get one run out of it, and then you have several opportunities to break this game wide open, and then Juan Soto hits a home run. And I think everyone collectively was like, oh, crap. Like, I was like, Spencer Schwellenbach, can you go 9? Like, I was like doing my math in the head, and they ended up taking out after just like 88 pitches, I think, and going to Rafael Iglesias, which almost turned sour. And then Dylan Lee happened, which was, I call it the big ball performance of the year. I mean, you haven't seen a lot of guys come in big situations, whether it's hitting, whether it's pitching, and go out there and strike out Juan Soto, who is absolutely on fire. He has a couple of home runs against the Braves over their last 4 games that they played each other. He had another hit in his last at bat. It felt like it was just brewing for disaster, because that's the way this season has gone. And Dylan Lee just kind of, the Braves are kind of just like that wobbling fighter, like just waiting to get knocked out. And it's
Tyson
like, oh,
Fury
yeah,
when his eyes rolled back.
Yeah, it's like, how the
He's
hell,
not dead.
how the hell did he get back up? And you know what? Yesterday was one of those, hey, I don't know how we got back up off the mat, but we got back off the mat and we move on to the next day. And well, I'm sure we'll talk about it, but Frankie Montas on the mound, that guy shouldn't even be in the major leagues. Like, if you can't score on Frankie Montas, yeah. Paul Blackburn's bad. Montas is terrible. And he had a 13 ERA in Gwinnett during his rehab starts. Please, offense, give us some runs.
Yeah, I mean, it is brutal to watch this offense. And you know, I think I tweeted it out that it's pretty crazy to think about. We are still in the wild card hunt with 4 automatic outs the entire season, every single day. Whoever is in left field, and of course there was a 2-week stretch there where Eli White and Verdugo were. I wish it feels like we can't offset. Like, some guys are either everyone's hot or nobody's hot. It's really just, what are we doing? We need to play, like you said, better partner scramble golf, where one guy's hitting it well, one guy isn't. Whoever's playing left field, abysmal. Nick Allen, abysmal. And then obviously you've got the 2 guys who are most disappointing, and Mike Harris and Ozzie. 4 guys. That's a lot of a lineup. That is literally automatic outs. Literally 4 of the 10 worst hitters among, and I know it's not going to be 4 of the 10 because some of them aren't qualified, but like, let's throw that out the window. They are 4 of the bottom 10 worst hitters in baseball, and we are still in the playoff hunt. Like, I think that's more impressive than, you know how bad we have been. And it was more of the same, where poor Mike Harris even hit a couple of balls really hard, and they just couldn't. They didn't fall, and they were great defensive plays. One of them just found a glove. Like, it's just unfortunate. Ozzie gets a little bloop and it looked like a 60. I mean, I don't know how he even gets to some of those balls, and he just bloops it over the shortstop's head. But those 2 guys in particular have just been absolutely atrocious. It doesn't look like it's turning around anytime soon. I'm quite concerned about Mike. Ozzie, obviously, you've got, the age, the obvious opt-outs of the contract, everything like that. But Mike, that's a different story entirely. How crazy is that? 4 automatic outs every single night. And we are still in the wild card hunt. Like, I think that should be encouraging from a, Anthopoulos trade deadline Braves fan rest of the season point of view.
Yeah, I mean, you could go even further. You also have had a bottom 5 bullpen in baseball for most of the season, and you've also had 3 guys from your opening day rotation that are now missing for extended periods. And on top of that, Spencer Strider just joined and started looking like it. So you've been piecing together a rotation. Luckily, you've just had a ton of guys stand on their head, and this rotation, when fully healthy, is absolutely unbelievable. But yeah, nothing has gone right, and
we're still hanging around.
Just hanging.
We're cockroaches. Won't die. Just will not die.
Listen, they've got an opportunity here. Like tonight, like I said, Frankie Montas is, if he wasn't, you have 30 days to, once you're activated from a rehab assignment, to rejoin the club, or they have to release you. Like, you basically have to be called up, or they could option you. But Frankie Montas signed a major league deal. He doesn't have options. So they had to bring up Frankie Montas in. And I'm telling you, this guy is not ready to pitch at the major league level. Now, We faced a
That's
lot of guys.
not to say
yes.
we can't make some of these scrubs look like
we have faced plenty of guys with 5, 6, 7 ERAs that have gone 6 scoreless with 10 strikeouts. I mean, we make everybody look like a strikeout pitcher. That's the most discouraging aspect of the Braves is you'll have some guy with like a 5.4 K9 and he goes and he strikes out 8. It's like set a season high, set a career high, and it's been this way going on for 2 years. So listen. There is no game too small that I believe the Braves can't find a way to lose. So I am not sitting here discounting.
Should have been nowhere close.
Yeah.
Even with the Soto home run, which, and Schwellenbach was still unbelievable. And his stat line against the Mets in particular is out of this world. And obviously you love that because the guy owns one of your biggest rivals. But like even with the 2-run home run, which isn't crazy, Soto's still one of the best hitters in baseball. Alonso and Lindor are still 2 of the best hitters in baseball. It was to be expected that they were going to score a couple of runs. You just kind of hoped Paul Blackburn, tomato can on the mound, you could put up more than 3 runs. Like that is where you're really missing me, where this game, got us all our panties in a bunch, where it was like Austin Riley, triple, can't get him across. We've got bases loaded. I think it was 1 out with bases loaded, maybe no outs. I'm not exactly sure. Only get one in. No outs.
They only got 1 run.
Only got 1 run in. And that's the kind of stuff.
What's crazy is that like no outs, bases loaded, getting 1 run in right now is like, oh, thank God we got 1. But it is. Like I was sitting there watching that. We pop out the first time, and I'm like, all right, please just get at least 1 in at this point because I've watched it go pop out, double play, pop out, strikeout, 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 like whatever the formula it is. I just watched this team be unable to score in the most obvious scoring positions. Like these should be times where you got the pitcher absolutely rattled. He hasn't thrown a good inning in 3 starts.
We used to be one of those teams, and I know it's becoming a distant memory 2023, but like when we got pitchers on the ropes, like a boxer, it was a foregone conclusion. We were like 9 out of 10 times we were putting him out of the ring, putting him on his ass, getting him out of the game. The bullpen, we were getting to them early. Now it's like 2 out of 10 times we've got a fighter on the ropes and he gets out of it. And it's honestly like becoming a very, very like, and it doesn't matter who it is. It's a frontline guy. It's a journeyman. It's a 4A guy that has no business being in the major leagues. Like we just can't. And obviously it's a mental thing. I don't know what it is. We've obviously talked about it ad nauseum, but that is such a thing that has, really changed where we used to be, get them on the ropes, knock them out, step on their throat, get into the bullpen. Yeah. And that would affect, games later in the series too, because they had to, start throwing guys out of their bullpen early. And it just hasn't been a factor this year.
It's why, even though we win, it's hard for me to be encouraged about anything that I saw last night. The only thing that I can say is encouraging. Obviously, Ronald Acuna is the GOAT. It's unbelievable. Schwellenbach, yeah. The same typical stars. And then I think the new emergence, I guess, would be could Dylan Lee close games. And it's just unbelievable. And I say this several times throughout the year on this show, but every time you look at the guy's stats, you're like, how is he doing that well? Like this guy has a 1.77 ERA. This guy's a 2.43 ERA since he made his debut. He's been one of the best relievers.
And that includes a year where he was unhealthy and did not pitch well.
Yeah. So that's really your 3. But until this offense, and I'm looking at Alex Anthopoulos because you're right. You are still right in the mix. Like these moves got to come soon. Like
the biggest culprit has been the offense.
Yeah.
I mean, I know.
And that's why I'm like outfield, because that's the easiest one. Everyone wants to point to Nick Allen, Brad. We're not getting a shortstop. Yeah. I mean, maybe we do. Maybe we get someone to platoon with him.
I saw somebody bringing up IKF, and it's like, yeah, he would be an improvement, but like, is that the move you're really like? I'd rather just stick with Nick Allen and throw another outfielder into the mix.
Yeah. Or like, 2 or 3.
No. I'm saying we already have 2. Instead of trading for IKF, another 3 outfielders, throw them in the mix. Whoever's hot, throw them out there.
Yeah, because that has to change. Yeah,
I mean we've got 2 zeros. We have 2 zeros.
This is a bottom 10 offense in baseball, and it's been that way since June of last year, and it's not changing. Like I think we can all sit here as much as we want it to change, as much as we've expected it to change, because we look at the back of these baseball cards and we look at all this stuff, and people blow air up there, whatever. And it's not changing. No, it's not changing.
I think it's really obvious that just throw all 4 of those morons at the back of the lineup. Stop trying to trickle them in. And we just have
Nacho Alvarez.
We just have to maximize those first 5 spots. That's it.
Well, bring me Nacho Alvarez too. Like he can't be worse. Actually, I want to talk about that coming up after the break. I know we talked about this yesterday, Nacho Alvarez potentially replacing Ozzie Albies, and I said, listen, I don't think it's going to happen sometime soon, but it's definitely on the table. I don't know how you can't say it's on the table. And I got a lot of pushback, whether it be on YouTube, TikTok, whatever. Go follow us at SportsTalkATL, calling Nacho Alvarez a 4A player. Guys, do you know what a 4A player is? Like Charlie Culberson was a 4A player. Eli White is a 4A player. These are guys that have literally been around AAA for a decade. Guys that hey, maybe in a pinch, they can give you an Eli White type run or a Charlie Culberson like run. But yeah, they're really just kind of journeyman guys. They're going to serve most of the time in AAA until someone gets injured. That's a 4A player. How are you going to call a guy that had just turned 22 years old and has made 8 MLB appearances and 71 appearances above the AA level? 71 games in Gwinnett. And by the way, he's hit .310 with 11 home runs, which is pretty damn good in AAA. Even Eli White, even these 4A players that you're talking about don't hit that well. How are you going to call him that? And why are we even talking about an 8-game sample size? Like, that shouldn't even be discussed in the Nacho Alvarez conversation. Like, who the hell cares what he did 8 games randomly when he was called up too quickly because Ozzie Albies got injured last season? Like, it's absurd to even mention that. Like, Nacho Alvarez could still be a very good player. And frankly, you don't have to be a very good player to be better than what Ozzie Albies has been.
Yeah, he's been below replacement level with the bat. And let's not, his defense isn't anything to write home about. Let's not act like this guy's out there. He looks 40 out there, which is crazy. 28 or 27, whatever he is. It's like the kid touching the stove. And we Braves fans just don't learn. We just went through this like literally a month ago. AJ Smith-Shawver he was 21 years old and everybody's writing him off because he had several. And honestly, even before he came up and broke out, it wasn't even that bad. Like, if you went and looked at his stats, they weren't even that bad. And then his stats with Atlanta were better than they were with Gwinnett. And then he finally broke out, and everybody was just like, "Oh, this guy can't." No, that development is never linear. I say it all the time, especially in baseball. It happens in a lot of sports, but especially in baseball. Sometimes things just click, and it did for AJ Smith-Shawver. Now, unfortunately, we know how that story goes, but it's like, don't you guys just remember how prospect fatigue was a thing with that guy, and now Nacho Alvarez? It's like, these guys get multiple opportunities, and very rarely, though we are spoiled with Mike Harris, Spencer Strider, Spencer Schwellenbach, the list goes on, where we are just spoiled when guys get called up and have this immediate rise to success where it's like, oh, it doesn't happen? Oh, he's a bum. Like, why can, everybody's got a different journey.
At least give me 2 years before we do it, or maybe a year's
8
worth
games
of games.
Is crazy.
Where was Drake Baldwin after 8 games? The guy had 1 hit. He
was batting below 100 through 12 games.
The guy had 1 hit. And now we're talking about Drake Baldwin as the next star of this franchise. Oh, and by the way, go look at Nacho Alvarez. They came up at the exact same time. Go look at Nacho Alvarez compared to Drake Baldwin's numbers in AAA. You'll be like, oh my, you start drooling. You'll be like, they're the exact same. So the fact that you would just completely write off someone because he had a bad 8 games when he was 20 or 21 years old. I know he's just turned 22 this year recently, so maybe he was 21 last year when he came up. It's absurd. He could totally be a piece of this team. He could totally have a huge impact on this team, just like Drake Baldwin is having. That's a very real possibility. So write that off with the way that Ozzie Albies, that's crazy to me. 4A player, laughable. We got some more to talk about after the break. We haven't heard much on the Kyle Wright front since his 2022 campaign when he finished in the top 10 of the Cy Young, had that memorable Game 2 performance that looked like it may have saved the Braves season in the NLDS. It was an unbelievable season, won 20 games and led the league in wins, and then the shoulder issues. And as I always like to remind people, shoulder issues are the death of pitchers. They're even worse than Tommy John. They're like up there with like Achilles. When you're talking about Michael Soroka tearing his Achilles 2 times, they're just extremely hard to come back from. And oftentimes you never get that full strength back. We haven't seen Kyle Wright pitch professionally since 2023. He's finally back on the mound, which it hasn't looked great to this point, but hey, just getting back on the mound is a huge thing for success. So I did want to bring it up because that was one of my favorite pitchers. I was in love with Kyle Wright, when he was drafted. I was in love with him throughout the minors. And when he finally broke out, I was like, hell yes. And for it to kind of just get taken away from us like so many of these young arms have in the past. Super disappointing, but still rooting for him. Hopefully he has a Michael Soroka-like kind of comeback after a lot of failure.
Yeah, he's a perfect example of multiple, lessons for Braves fans of not riding guys off too early, because he came up and struggled
multiple times.
And people were like, this guy's never going to figure it out. And then, like you said, puts together a campaign where everybody then goes on to the opposite side of things, where it's like, this guy's going to be Tom Glavine. We got Tom Glavine, John Smoltz. We've got the big three all over again. And unfortunately, the next lesson came where these young arms, I mean, it's like you're better off just getting surgery. Now, shoulder, obviously, I know is different, but like, and it's happened to like multiple. I know Richie. I know maybe Cam Canetti. Owen Murphy. Multiple Braves pitchers have gotten Tommy John right after being drafted. Yeah, right after being drafted. And it looks like that might just be the way to go now. Obviously,
Spencer Strider.
Kyle Wright. Yeah, it literally is that our formula now. But
I actually saw, just not to cut you off, but Chris Dimino, I think after the AJ Smith-Shawver, I was listening to 680 The Fan, and Chris Dimino did bring up the fact that, if you're an 18-year-old pitcher that has, draftable talent, and a doctor came up to you and said, hey, you're going to have to get the surgery. You're going to be out a year and a half, but guess what? You're never going to have to deal with it again throughout your career. Would you go ahead and do it? And the answer would be yes. Obviously, there's no guarantee it can't happen twice. We saw it just recently with Spencer Strider, but it is a lot more unlikely after you have that first surgery to have it again. We saw Max Fried, I believe, had it twice as well, or maybe he didn't, but some guys do have it twice, but it's less likely. And I thought that was a funny point, because honestly, you might. If you're an 18-year-old and you're throwing 97 miles per hour and it's a ticking time bomb.
Well, it's coming.
Yeah.
It really is. It's coming. I mean, it's not just the fastball. It's all this other crap that we're throwing. I mean, you see 95-mile-an-hour sinkers and 90-mile-an-hour sliders I saw the other day, where I'm like, how is that? What are we even doing to these kids right now? So
Chase Shores, man, out of LSU is throwing 101 with a nice 92 piece.
It's just an absurd stuff. And that's the second point I was trying to make, is like the lesson is, the first lesson, stop giving up on any prospect too early. The second point is, it's so unfortunate when young pitchers, AJ Smith-Shawver, obviously the most recent that we've dealt with, but hardly the only one. Soroka, Kyle Wright, Ian Anderson. I know Spencer Strider. I mean, I'm holding on. I don't even want to say it. I'm not going to knock for Roscoe's sake, but Schwellenbach, I mean, he's throwing 99-100 regularly now, and it's terrifying. I know it's fun to watch, but it's in the back of my mind.
Well,
it's just
the good news is he did have it 2 years ago. Okay. I mean, I guess that is the good news, because it is definitely less likely. But again, you saw something happen with Spencer Strider when he had Tommy John surgery earlier in his career, and then he had to go through the internal brace surgery not long after that. So yeah, it's one of those things. It's also a reminder for when you're talking about these long-term extensions that we now realize are not necessarily the automatic green flag great move. We're now regretting, or thinking about at least regretting, several of these deals like Spencer Strider. I think we're happy with the way he's looked
has
lately.
Any long-term pitcher deal worked out? Like Garrett Cole is.
I mean, these are a lot smaller. Like, you're only giving them
I'm just talking about the mega pitcher deals. Like, has any of them I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, Garrett Cole's, and he's even been injured.
Like, I think the one that stands out to me is Zach Wheeler.
Okay.
He didn't necessarily get the 10-year 300, but he got like two separate, like 100 and then 150.
Right.
But this is a guy that was plagued. I mean,
Aaron Nola.
This guy couldn't stay healthy in New York.
Aaron Nola has been an Iron Man, and he signs this deal a couple of years ago, and now he's hurt. Like, I mean,
is he hurt or is he just terrible? I think they might have just. I think the Phillies may have came up to Aaron and said, you know what?
Take a break.
Let's go to Cancun.
Go on vacation. Yeah. Go spend time with your family.
We're 16 games over 500. We got some pitching. We got Mick Abel. Let's bring him up. It's one of those ghost IL. And it might not be, but that does happen. We see the Braves do it all the time with struggling pitchers.
Yeah, and I mean, it's one of those things with the Braves. Good Lord Almighty, we need some of that. We need it. Our pitching depth. If we lose one more guy, I mean, we're about to. Who's even up next in AAA?
I did write an article on that. We could talk about it, but we do have other stuff to talk about. Maybe something we talk about tomorrow.
I mean, list them out real quick
Didier,
for me.
Blake Berhalter, J.R. Ritchie.
Okay, so that's exciting. At least.
I mean, there's some guys. I don't know how they'd be able to pitch. They're definitely not ready to come up. It shouldn't be what we're relying on. I'm just saying, like,
that depth is paper thin.
I mean,
it's non-existent.
It would get really quick into, all right, we're looking at next year if we lose one of Strider or Spellenbach. So hopefully, pray real quick that those guys stay healthy. We got some Hawks talk coming up after the break.
Got a big offseason for the Atlanta Hawks. We have motivation and the resources to make a big move. That doesn't necessarily mean it will happen, but we have the ammunition, and we obviously have Trae Young, which every single offseason should be enough motivation to go and make a big move. We just saw the Indiana Pacers. None of those guys individually are better than Trae Young. We should have the motivation to go. And the name that was connected to the Hawks, Kristaps Porzingis, being shopped by the Celtics, also like 12 other teams called Boston, which is really shocking to me because Kristaps is 29, $30 million price tag. It is an expiring deal, so that's one attractive piece of it. But he's dealt with injuries, and 7'2" guys who deal with injuries at 29 years old don't generally get healthier. He also had the mysterious illness, we all know what that was. I'm just kidding. I think if you're a Hawks fan, there's a lot to take away from this. Mainly, I think you hate he's 29 years old, already dealing with injuries. You don't love the $30 million price tag, especially what he gave the Celtics last year. But he was a big piece of that championship run. I mean, an X factor of sorts. But on the other side of it, I think that if you look at the construction of the Hawks roster, you need a stretch big. Onyeka Okongwu, though it's improving, he is not a reliable three-point threat. Jalen Johnson, we already know he is an attacking forward. He's an attacking front court asset. He is not necessarily that guy, though I do think he is also improving at a much quicker rate than Okongwu. He can be that guy sometimes. Kristaps would give you the ability to have that 5, and Okongwu could be that 5, whatever you really wanted to do, and have him still be that stretch and floor spacer that you need with Jalen Johnson on the court. So I can understand some Hawks fans who hate the idea. I can also understand where it's like, it makes sense. Like, whatever, if it's not Kristaps or not, we need a stretch. We need a stretch big in the front court this year.
Yeah, I think it definitely adds versatility to whatever way the Hawks want to mix and match it. I mean, you want to bring him off the bench, you want to bring him as a starter, you want to bring a Okongwu off the bench. I think it adds versatility, and I think depth was a huge problem for the Hawks, and especially scoring depth. The guys that can score, guys that can shoot. So it makes sense, and I think a $30 million price tag for a guy that's in today's NBA one is not that much.
Yeah, $80 million max deal.
Yeah, I mean, so $30 million is not that ridiculous, and I think I see it. I see it being an expiring deal. You're not tied to it. You're like, all right, let's see if this works out.
And they're not asking for an arm and a leg.
No. I mean, I imagine it's more of a salary dump than anything. 100%. I mean, maybe the Hawks give up like pick 22, or if they'd even have to do that, maybe a couple of second round picks. I mean, it's more of a glorified salary dump. Maybe they match salaries with a little bit lesser salary. I don't know exactly what the deal would be, but yeah, you're getting him basically for nothing, and you're running a trial run. And I do think the combination of him and Onyeka Okongwu, with center being the biggest need for this team, at least whether it's a backup or a starter or however they want to do it, I do like the idea of kind of mixing and matching those two. And I think it'd be intriguing. I definitely think it would make the Hawks a better team. Trying to be a better team, a move like that would make a better team. I know everyone wants Giannis.
Big.
Everybody wants Giannis. Everyone wants Kevin Durant.
I still do, but it's not going to happen.
Yeah, guys. I know. We got to be realistic with what we're looking at.
And honestly, like, this is the kind of team that you don't want to make sweeping moves. And I know the Houston trade, or the KD trade, was sweet for Houston, but like, in a Kristaps move, we're not giving up a ton, and we're also not committing a ton to the future. We're not sinking a lot of assets, current or future, into that deal where, like you said, it's kind of like a trial run. And honestly, I don't even care if it worked out. I wouldn't want to sign him to an extension because of the things I just mentioned. Nobody over the size of 7 feet should ever get a new deal for my team after the age of 30.
It's like paying running backs.
Right. It's done. They're done. And if you get caught with your pants around your ankles, it's your own fault. Every single year. There's only a couple of guys, Adrian Peterson after he tore his ACL. That doesn't happen. Derrick Henry, doesn't happen. The rest of these cats, their legs are gone. They're shot. They will be. I mean, it's the same thing with 7-footers in the NBA. Biologically, their knees and ankles cannot hold up. It is just impossible. And Kristaps is already dealing with it. But trial run, I'm all for it. I mean, I think it could work out.
Yeah, and I like how it's kind of like that treading water that you're doing with this group, where you're not committing too much to the future, and you're also
still
not
letting your internal core grow.
I mean, you're giving yourself a chance to compete now, and you're not committing too much to the future. We got some more Hawks. Like Anie Salah made some interesting comments about Trae Young's future and the upcoming NBA draft. Atlanta Hawks GM Anie Salah met with the media, I believe, for the first, definitely for the first time since becoming general manager. So it was the first time I ever got to hear him speak. I thought it was interesting, and it's crazy. The Hawks, despite being in all these rumors about a president of basketball operations search, and all these rumors about Trae Young, and all these rumors about the draft and having 2 draft picks, they have basically been mum is the word for going on 2 months. So this was the first time that we got to hear from anyone in the building, and it does look like he's going to be the guy calling the shots for the foreseeable future. He said 2 things. 1, do you want to start off with the draft or Trae Young? Come on, pick a card.
I just want to say this, that I think Tony Ressler's, attempt to go Moby Dick hunting in terms of a president of basketball operations was obvious. And then if the Hail Marys didn't work, it was like Anie Salah was the GM.
Yeah,
I think good.
Listen,
good plan, I guess.
Yeah, no, I
thought.
If
that's what it was.
Listen, it's nice to see this team aggressively trying to do something to try to win, which we haven't seen a lot out of this ownership group. Clearly, they were very confident in Salah because, as we've said, it's not like Landry Fields did a terrible job as a general manager. He made mostly good moves, but I think they fell in love with Salah because of the way
he could have been the engine behind
the way that he maneuvered. Behind closed doors, there was clearly a way that he maneuvered. His input was highly valued, maybe even more highly valued than Landry Fields. So that's interesting. First, he said Trae Young, Hawks are committed to him. But I did think it was a little intriguing, and I know GMs aren't going to talk about contract negotiations, but he just talked about it as, hey, we're committed to him this year. We're committed to him this year. We're trying to get better this season, and then we'll figure it out from there. Any reading in between the lines into that?
No, that's the tea leaf reading. I think for a guy who just got into the position is a little like, I don't think he's that calculated in that. Like, I think he's just, trying to do one after. I think with the media, it is 1 foot in front of the other. He's not trying to do anything crazy. I think we love Trae and we're trying to build around him this year. I think he's eligible in a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks, very, very soon. I think it will be pen to paper very soon after when he is eligible. I think it's on all fronts. Like, Quinn Snyder it feels like for the first time, and I know we don't know much about Anie Salah, but it feels like, other than whatever the hell Tony Ressler's doing with his little, project next to State Farm, we have a star player, head coach, GM almost aligned. Maybe we're very closely aligned. And that's how you have to win championships. Those 3 guys being aligned.
Yeah, I definitely think we do. And you can even go back to Travis Schlenk. I believe there were reports where he kind of floated the idea to the wrestlers of trading Young if situations got like that, and it immediately was nixed. And then the DeJounte Murray thing happened, and there was this huge disconnect that led to that giant fallout. Right. So I definitely think when you look at the wrestlers and you look at what's bringing in people into the building, it's Trae Young. And they care about that bottom line. They have no interest in trading, and I don't think they would have hired a GM that has any interest in trading him. And it definitely feels like Quinn Snyder and that relationship with Trae Young
is
has
stronger
evolved
than it's ever been.
But I do think another thing that Salah mentioned was the leadership of Trae Young, because it's something that we talked about on this show. And it seemed like for the first time, and you mentioned a line, but yeah, the clubhouse drama, the locker room drama was non-existent this season. And this team made strides despite dealing with injury after trade. This team had no business being a 500 basketball team. Trae Young changed the way he played. He became more of a playmaker. He tried to get guys like Zachary Rizachet and Dyson Daniels more involved in the offense. And those guys made huge leaps and bounds. And Salah spoke to, it may not be out there to the common eye. Of course, we're not the common eye. We noticed this, but it was happening behind closed doors. He was definitely taking that leadership role, and he wants to see this thing through. And that is about all we can ask for at this point with everything that's happening.
And I think that you could even see it in the the moments with the media that Trae is clearly maturing. And it's
crazy to think he's 26.
I was just about to say it's asinine for anybody. Like, Peyton Manning just doesn't exist. Like Andrew Luck, that doesn't exist. Mind you, the NBA guys are coming out at 18, not 21. even still, when you're a 21-year-old and you've got $1 billion franchise and millions of fans, and everybody is scrutinizing you, and it's hard. I imagine it's next to near impossible to do the right thing ever. So, it's not shocking that he's coming into this kind of leadership role in his mid to late 20s. I think that is generally, girls always say, guys don't fully develop that frontal cortex until 28?
They love to tell that.
They love
us.
to say, and hey, now we're using it. Like, I'm just saying, now we're using it. Now we're getting to that point where, like, oh, we are thinking about the things. We are thinking about the downside, not only the upside. And I think that Trae Young is clearly showing, massive strides in that department. And it's only going to have a trickle-down effect with what is still a very young team.
And you've seen the same thing with Ronald Acuna Jr. I mean, that 100%. Guy came up at 19, and how many times have we said, hey, man, like, come on. Like, you're expected more than that. But then you have to kind of reel back and be like, hey, he is only 27 years old. And yes, he has made a mistake recently that you're like, hey, you probably shouldn't be doing that. You probably shouldn't be doing that on social media. So you've seen these kind of things, but you hope with time. And we've seen it a lot with Trae Young, I think, over the last season. The last interesting thing that Salah said in regards to the draft, he's the best player available guy. Woohoo, we got another one in Atlanta, baby. Best player available. BPA, him and Terry Fontenot go have drinks over the best player.
Schlink was, and he got JJ, John Collins.
Well, I'll say this.
Schlink was a good
I'll
GM.
say this. BPA always makes the most sense. I mean, why would you not want to take the best player available regardless of position? Like, what are we doing here? Like, that's a very, I think, blanket statement that's very easy to just tell the media.
Hide behind.
Yeah. But in basketball, especially,
it's very different.
I mean, in basketball, it's like, dude, like, if you think one of these guys can be a star and he's the best player available, like, take him. Who cares what
basketball
position he plays?
Is very different because you see all the time, and I know it's very much the exception, but like Jokic, where, and you see it all the time, and from outside of the lottery, but still the first round, where these guys are just taken, and it was like so obvious that, like, yeah, he was going to be at least that niche. He was the best at that niche. He wasn't the best overall prospect because he wasn't good at defense or he wasn't good at shooting. He had no ball handling, but he was elite in that niche. And it's like, that's what the Hawks need. We need role players now. We don't need, and the chances of having a star is obviously what you should be taking, but we need guys who can have immediate roles for our team. And that's what the best teams always end up doing.
And also the reality of the situation is how many guys in each draft end up becoming contributors? Maybe 10.
Yeah.
Like, there's not that many guys that become significant.
Well, sometimes it's 15, but sometimes it's like 3.
So if you're drafting for need when there's only 15 of these guys, it absolutely doesn't. Yeah. I understand maybe in the first round, if you have 8 corners, you're not going to draft corner and you're going to go wide receiver.
I disagree.
Yeah. But I at least can understand it. I at least can understand. And the Falcons can definitely understand it because they passed on Jalen Carter for Bijan Robinson and Tyler.
My guy, Joe Patrick. He's one of my favorites.
I know. I love Joe.
Coming out.
I don't know what he was thinking there. I have to say. And it's funny because people were going at Joe, and I know we're switching things, who defended Terry Fontenot this morning. And he kind of just backtracked against everyone that was going at him. It was like he realized he said something that probably shouldn't have been said.
Well, I mean, it's just there's areas to defend Terry Fontenot. I don't think he's been nearly as bad as some
pro
fans
personnel sign has been fantastic.
I don't think he's been as bad as some fans might, act. But then you've got goofy morons who talk about, I forget his name on Twitter, but I commented. He's like he literally said, wow, Falcons fans are not, I'm not even going to mess with that part because I forgot what he said. But he said, Terry Fontenot is banging on the door of being an elite GM or a terrific GM. And I laughed at him. Because while he isn't the worst GM, he's not the worst GM. He is nowhere close to being a good GM. Like everything, and especially Terry Fontenot, somewhere in the middle.
Well, he's
a mid GM.
You can say mid, but I would say below mid. I'm not going to let him. I'm not going to get away with
16 to 20
average.
Is mid.
21 is what I have him.
Okay. That's still almost mid.
I'm messing. You got to give it one more thing coming up after the break. So I did a piece on the site. Go check it out at SportsTalkATL.com. But Didier Fuentes shockingly made his debut. Now, of course, we know Chris Sale fractured his rib. That came out after. And now,
do you think it was they made that call because they knew about the fracture? Or
yes.
Then they found out?
No, they knew right away.
They knew.
I bet they knew within 2 hours of the game, of the end of the game. He said something hurt my ribs. They said, let's go get an MRI.
Yeah, somebody said, we're lining up Sale and Schwelly and Strider for this second series with the Mets. And I was like, Yeah, that is awesome.
Yeah, that made sense.
Right.
And then
so that wouldn't have happened, you don't think?
No.
So we wouldn't have gotten Sale with the Mets for the second.
No, Schwellenbach. Oh. Schwellenbach would have pitched that. But so Fuentes is going to make his next start tomorrow, and hopefully he has a great start. Hopefully we beat the Mets, and hopefully there's no questions, because I think he's very possible could have a good game against the Mets, which is an offense that has really struggled of late. And I think it's very possible that he could stick in Atlanta until Chris Sale. But if he does struggle, the Braves are going to have to call up another pitcher, because unless they sign someone off the street or start going bullpen games, which I don't think they'll do, because there's such a long period. There's also such a long period. We're talking about maybe a month long that Chris is going to be out, or Chris Sale is going to be out. You can't just keep throwing out bullpen games and wasting your bullpen. So I started the list off with J.R. Ritchie. I think he's a guy that's maybe the Braves' number 2 ranked prospect, number 6 on MLB.com. MLB.com's stupid when it comes to their prospect ranking. He's probably 2 or 3 in my book. He's not going to be your Spencer Schwellenbach or Spencer Strider, but he's a guy that throws strikes. He can get you around 9 to 10 strikeouts per 9 innings, maybe a little bit less. Kind of a mid-rotation guy. And I think if they're going to call up another guy, you very easily could see him make starts at some point this season for the Braves.
Gotta throw strikes.
Well, that's what you'll
gotta throw strikes. That's about the only thing that, you really got to have. And, I think that's what's Fuentes' biggest problem, going back to Fuentes, is like maybe he throws too many strikes, a lot like Schwelle did last year.
That's what you'll notice about all these starters on this list, because then I go to Blake Burkhalter. Now, Blake Burkhalter had Tommy John surgery. Remember how we talked? He had Tommy John surgery coming out of the draft in Auburn, which is why he was the 76th pick in the draft. Now, he was only a reliever, but the Braves turned him into a full-time starter. He's had some really good results since coming back from Tommy John surgery. He's a guy with a big fastball, could be a big strikeout guy. Another guy that doesn't walk batters, which is why I'm like, they might, say, hey, we need you. It's time to go. Whoever they're going to call up, I guarantee you they're not going to walk guys.
Common thing.
And then you go to Ian Meha, which is much further down the prospect list. He's number 23. Now, this guy's not a strikeout guy, but he doesn't walk players, and he gets guys out. 2.23 ERA, threw a no-hitter, I believe, earlier in the season, and for AA Columbus. Again, this is a back-of-the-rotation starter at best, but the Braves are in a pretty desperate situation where if another guy gets injured,
we're looking for a back-of-the-rotation
it's going to be like someone that can just come up here and throw strikes and not give up 7 runs a game, and they could be scrambling. Then we get to I think the more intriguing names, because they're not starting pitchers, and I go to Carlos Rodriguez, who is an outfielder, one of the few position player prospects on this. Now, obviously, we got problems in the outfield. Maybe we want to do a little test run before Jerkson Profar. Wouldn't hate it, because this guy has no pop. He plays above average defense, and he's hitting 310. He's hitting 310 in Gwinnett. And frankly, any guy that can hit 300 on this team or anywhere close to the 280 marks, anything like that, be a contact guy.
Like our 4th best hitter.
Exactly. Like a 720 OPS. I don't care if he hits a home run. Like, you can come up here and hit 275
we already
and play
have
good
that.
Defense. Yeah.
And they don't hit 300. We already have guys who can't hit home runs.
So I really wouldn't be surprised. Carlos Rodriguez is a guy that at any time, if things just do not get better in the outfield, would not be shocked about Carlos Rodriguez. The last guy I have on this list, maybe the most intriguing, bullpen arm, Hayden Harris. Now, you never see bullpen arms ranked in the top 30. It's very rare, because you're talking about starting pitchers. The upside's not there. And this guy's not even like a 98, 99 mile per hour guy. But let me tell you, he has a 0.66 ERA this year. They just recently bumped him up to Gwinnett, where he has a 0 ERA over his first 5 appearances. And we all know about the Braves bullpen issues. Would actually be shocked if at some point we don't see Hayden Harris. So if I were to rank the likelihood of seeing these guys, I'd put Hayden Harris at 1, maybe J.R. Ritchie at 2, right there with Carlos Rodriguez, and Blake Burkhalter at 4.
Hopefully we don't have to see any of them. Other than Harris, I think Harris is a thing.
I think Harris could be
an actual complementary piece. Where the other guys, we're just hoping that they can, stop a bleeding, fill a hole momentarily until we can find something more permanent. Whereas Harris, you're saying, he could maybe be a piece out of the bullpen. But right now, I mean, we're scrambling for answers, and it doesn't feel like pulling ourselves up by our bootstraps, talking about Ozzie or Nacho, Mike Harris, Carlos, whatever it might be, is coming anytime soon. Like those guys, I mean, it's ugly. It's getting real ugly. I mean, it's unbelievable. I seriously think Mike Harris needs, either stop with the information overload or he needs LASIK. It's one of the two.
I'll tell you what, if the Braves do end up falling out of this race, you're going to see a lot of real interesting names on this team. I will tell you, because all 5 of those names that I mentioned could potentially get things. And if they come out of this race, I assume it'll be because another starting pitcher got injured and Ozzie Albies and Michael Harris don't come back. And then they've got to start really looking towards 2026. So they're going to give some of these guys opportunities like Nacho Alvarez and J.R. Ritchie and Blake Burkhalter if this thing gets out of hand. So it'll be interesting either way. Hopefully,
let's just sweep the Mets.
Yeah, I agree. Let's sweep the Mets. Didier Fuentes, 9 shutout innings, perfect game. How about that? That wraps up our show. Thank you guys so much for joining us. We'll be back with you tomorrow.